Michael Rubin of the 217, you've got a pretty difficult question.
Thanks for taking my question. So I'm working on a small project that started out as a 50-50 joint venture between my company and a good friend of mine, and it's a side project for both of us. We both have full-time jobs, and the product we're developing is my friend's idea. I've done all the programming, and he was supposed to do everything else. And at first, we both worked really hard, and we had a really good working relationship. But over time, he's dropped off more and more until I think he's lost interest in the project, even though he won't admit it. And as a tech guy, I've never been in this situation, and I don't know what to do with him. Can I kick him out if it's his idea? And before it gets to that point, what do I need to try with him?
Yeah, okay. That's a great question. This happens frequently. And we can get you through this. This is not an impossible task. This happens all the time. As a matter of fact, YouTube had a founder who left early. Everybody knows Chad Hurley. Everybody knows the other guy, Stephen Chen. But there was a third founder. Happens all the time. People can lose interest. That's okay. People are allowed to lose interest. Move on to other things. And it's one of the great things about being an entrepreneur. You can follow your muse. So, question one. Do you guys have any kind of a written agreement, or is it just a gentleman's agreement?
We have a joint venture agreement, but it basically says we split profits 50-50, we split costs 50-50, that's all.
Right. Okay. And so if you have this joint venture, the intellectual property of the joint venture, and you can get a lawyer to do this, it's probably you co-own it. He didn't pay you for it, but since you said you were doing a joint venture, and you did this joint venture agreement with a lawyer, or you just wrote a letter?
We used the template and did it ourselves.
Okay. So, for all intents and purposes, you're equal partners on this. You may be putting in different amounts of time, but you did a project together. When people do a venture-backed company together, they have to vest their interest in the company. Are you familiar with the concept of vesting your interest, investing your stock?
Yes.
Okay. So, you guys didn't do that in this kind of arrangement. You just took founder shares. So, it puts you in a little bit of a bind because, you know what? He owns half the company day one, you own half the company day one. In an ideal world, you would say, we're going to vest our shares over 4 years. And so if one person leaves the project after 2, the other person then owns 75% of the shares and the other person owns 25. Much more equitable. You guys didn't do that. That's okay. I'm assuming you didn't have that clause in there, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So that's okay. Not the end of the world. What you need to do is, how long have you guys been working on it?
About 9 months.
Okay. So you need to sit down with your partner and say, listen, I get the sense you're not as into the project. I understand that. It's no problem. I am interested in the project. I'd like to do it. However, obviously, if I'm going to work on this for the next 5 years and you're not, I don't feel it's equitable, and you probably agree with me. It's a little semantic thing there. You probably agree with me that you don't deserve half of it. But you did start it, so you should get something. And so I'm willing to give you 20% in this entity, even though you're not going to work on it anymore, or 10%. If you want to keep working on it, I'm willing to keep it 50-50, but I don't want to force you, and you're clearly not into it, and I'm putting in most of the effort here. So this is what I think is fair. If you have a counter to it, I'm willing to discuss that. However, I need to have this resolved in order to keep working on the project, or else I, too, am going to move on to another project. And so this is my proposal. If you have a different proposal, let me know. I've very much enjoyed working with you. We're friends. It's been a great time. But it is business, and we should be very clear about this now, so that if this does become something, it's equitable. And do you think you're capable of having that kind of a blunt discussion with him?
I think so, but for the future, what signs could I have seen that would have caused me to do this a long time ago and not have wasted months of frustration? What signs do you look for?
Well, you can never know. People get married, they date people, and then they break up with them and they get out of the fog and they go, oh my God, I can't believe I was in a relationship with such a jerk. Did you ever do that?
Yeah.
Okay. So, when you're in the midst of it, everything seems like roses, and then you get, you clear your mind, and then you meet another person, you're like, oh wow, this is what is great. Don't be too hard on yourself about it. It happens. I suggest you're going to have to let go of the concept that this is all going to work out. It may or may not work out. He could be a jerk about it. He could not budge. And then your counter to that is, okay, well, the whole thing's going down in flames. It's over. Boom. Or since I own half the asset, I think we should sell the asset on eBay or to the highest bidder. Another way people do this is they put a piece of paper and they say, I'm going to put a number on a piece of paper. And then the other party agrees to either take that number or pay that number. So you say, I think this is all worth $25,000, the work I put into it. I'm going to put $25,000 on a piece of paper. Then you give him the piece of paper. He either got to, if he agrees to this, pay the 25 or take the 25. There's all different ways for breaking this stuff up that mediators do, which you could get one, but it's not necessary. You can just move on to another project. You can't tell. That's why people put in the provision of vesting your stock over time. They came up with that because people can't tell. And founder shares is a very powerful thing, you know. And to vest all your founder shares, very dangerous. That's why VCs, they want people to vest. I have to vest in my own company. You know? I mean, just the way it is. They don't want to invest and then you leave the next day and they're left holding the bag. You own half the company or a third of the company or 2/3 of the company. So venture capitalists have already solved this problem decades ago. You know, you're going to learn the hard way, but you know what? That's what being an entrepreneur is. That pain and frustration of this project will go into your next project, and it will make you a stronger and better entrepreneur. And you just got to use it. And if I think you could save this one. And if you want, I'll talk to the guy on the phone with you. If you need you try it first. But if you want, I'll try to talk the guy down and tell him, hey, you know, here's the situation. Michael's going to probably move on to another project. It's going to be worth nothing. You better take 10% of something than 100% of nothing, or 50% of nothing. So, but I think you'll do it. You're going to be fine. Don't beat yourself up about it. It's all of your failures are going to culminate into some success at some point. So you got to use it. You know, it's like you watch the NBA at all?
Yep.
You saw Kobe Bryant win?
Yeah.
What did he do last year? He got his ass kicked.
He lost to the Boston Celtics.
He lost to the Boston Celtics, as Don will tell you. He's a Boston fan. Not only did he lose in that last game,
Humiliated.
They whoop him by 50 points or something, or 40
40.
40-point loss. Kobe Bryant in the offseason, he was PO'd. And he came back and he brought it. That's what you can do. Yeah, so this deal didn't work out. You know what? Come back to another project. It's not your only idea. You're going to have 10 million ideas. You come back twice as hard. You use the pain and suffering to put it into your next project. Because what are you going to do? Sit up there and curl up in a ball and give up? I mean, that's not an option. What do you think, Don?
Well, I agree
Don's
with
got some advice.
I agree with everything you said. It does happen all the time. You don't read about it because it happens so often and it doesn't come to any consequence. So I try all the things that Jason suggested, and here's another twist for you.
Haha.
Turn the tables. Tell him, I'm not interested in the project anymore. I want out. I want to sell it to you. How much do you want for it? And whatever that number is, turn around. He might say $10,000. Then turn around and say, all right, I've got $15,000. I'll pay you 50% more than you think it's worth. I'll take it for $15,000. So you've got to first have the conversation with them and try to do it amicably and reasonably. And if that doesn't work, then just say, all right, I'm out. I don't have time for this, and the project's going to die. So do you want to buy it? You want to buy my share?
Right. And this is perfect advice. One of the critical things during this is you can't lose your cool. You have to be calm. I can tell in your voice you're a little frustrated. Are you a little frustrated, Mike?
Yeah, my gut feeling is to be really tough on the guy, but he's also my good friend, so I've been really passive-aggressive, and I feel bad about that.
Yeah, so listen, honestly, you seem like you're a pretty self-aware guy. You're passive-aggressive because you feel like you're getting taken advantage of and you're disappointed. So put that aside and just think business for a second. What is your goal? Your goal is you want to work this out and take this project to the next level. So forget about the emotion of it. Just focus on that goal. The goal is to work this out. Emotion, you being emotional, in this situation doesn't help. It's only like putting fire on stuff. Stay focused and have a clean, like non-emotional negotiation with him. And silence in a negotiation is your friend. Watch this. I don't think I can continue on the project unless we renegotiate the percentage we own, because I know that you're not going to work on it anymore. I'm willing to give you 10%. Is that something that you would be comfortable with? We just sat there for 8 seconds, quietly. 8 seconds is so uncomfortable for people. That's only 8 seconds. You have to learn to just use that. Just tell him what you want, and then let him respond to it. It's a very Zen kind of thing, but in a negotiation, that helps. You just put your case out there, and you hope for the best.
Mike, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
What do you think would happen to this project if you stopped working on it?
I think it would die.
Okay, there's your answer.
Yeah, I mean, you have a pretty good negotiating position. I mean, it's if you're not involved, it dies. He's not involved, it's still going, which means you could go start another thing, you know? And it's not like you signed a no-compete. In the agreement, was there a non-compete clause where you said, I agree?
No, there wasn't.
Yeah, so there's no non-compete in it, so you could just tell him straight up, listen, I'm going to stop working on this. I'm not going to use that code. I'm starting again. I've got a slightly different model, but I'm going to attack the space again and do it again. I have no non-compete clause, so essentially this is your only shot. You either get 10% of the thing going forward, and you have non-voting shares, and I'm going for it, or I'm just starting over. And this whole thing's going away. And you know what? you may get into a lawsuit based on that if he wanted to, because anybody can sue you for any time, but he's not going to. It doesn't make any sense. Especially if you're very clear about it, and the arrangement is clear that there's no non-compete, and he doesn't have to live up to the non-compete either. He can go leave and go start a competitive thing, and you can tell him that. You can feel free to go leave and do a competitive thing if you want. If it gets to that second phase of negotiation, try the non-emotional, quick, clean. We need to negotiate this. We're friends, and he's a friend, so he should be happy to get 10% and have a 10% upside to your future success. That's an amazing thing. He should be thrilled that he doesn't have to work and gets 10%. And if he doesn't, he's probably a little naive and probably somebody that you're not going to be able to reason with. So then just walk away and do the next thing. And that's a big part about being an entrepreneur, is knowing when to walk away.
Yeah.
So you'll be fine.
That's all great advice.
Yeah.
Thank you guys very much.
No problem. Take care. I think that was pretty good. I mean, it's a tough situation.
It happens all the time.
Happens all the time. And you know what? As you get older, you get less emotional about it. You can just sort of see it's like either you're going to negotiate your way out of it, or it's going to be a fight. And if it's going to be this huge, big fight, better off just walking away and starting over.
It's easy for us to say, but
Right.
the thing about entrepreneurs is
when you're in the
entrepreneurs never give up.
Yeah.
They never give up.
Right.
They're passionate.
Yeah.
So any little thing like this, you're going to try to fight and try to
Yeah.
work it out and try to make it happen. And sometimes it's not worth it. You have to just walk away.
Right. And you don't want to, there's an opportunity cost in all this. If you are working so hard for so long on this, I mean, you kill yourself, you could be going on to the next thing. You could waste your time for a year or two fighting court and whatever, and then the next opportunity, you miss it because you're so busy fighting, right?
Right.
I mean, it's very hard to know when to fight, when not to. It's very, very careful. It's very nuanced. But the good news is, Michael is learning. Other people are at some, not learning and being an entrepreneur. So let's take...
You mentioned leaving and going on to the next opportunity.
Yeah.
That right there is one of the reasons that startups split very
Right.
often, is because one of the founders gets
Right.
interested in something else
Yeah.
and wants to go do something else.
Right.
So it happens all
Yeah,
the time.
and you know what? It can be brilliant sometimes. I mean, ODO
With
to Twitter.
Right.
Sometimes it can be a wonderful thing. Sometimes it's losing. If you're losing your attention towards it, maybe the idea is not as valuable to you as the other idea. So you should go on to the other idea.
Right.
Piece of cake.